Unit 1, Individual and Universe, Rabindranath Tagore. Today we are going to do the first Unit 1, Objectives, Introduction, Individual and Indian writing in English. English 255. For the Indian writing in English, syllabus book 1. Okay. Okay. Syllabus book 1, non-fictional prose. Unit 1, Individual and Universe. Individual and Universe 1. Objectives. After completing studies of the unit, you will know briefly about Rabindranath Tagore as a writer of philosophical religious prose in Indian English. Read about the difference between the Indian and the Western civilization. Learn about the West attitude to nature and Indian point of view. Read about Tagore's idea of fundamental unit of creation. Come to know different goals of Indian and Western civilization and its effects on their worldly success. Read the summary of Tagore's philosophy regarding the kinship between the individual and the universe. Study the main ideas in the essay and Tagore's style. Introduction. You have to remember, students, that when you go through the introduction for each and every unit, the introduction for the exam point of view is very necessary, which should be by heart and learned it for the exam purpose. So while writing the answer pattern of the question, if there is a question on Rabindranath Tagore, you can give the introduction idea, which I am going to read it, which is much necessary for the exam point of view. Rabindranath Tagore, 1861-1941, was the youngest son of Maharishi Rabindranath Tagore, the well-known religious reformer and one of the earliest members of Brahmo Samaj. Rabindranath was born in Kolkata and was educated both in private and public school. He used to write poetry even as a child. He went to England for education but came back after 1.5 years to look after the estate. He wrote poems, novels, plays, short stories and essays, but he earned great fame as a poet. In 1913, his collection of lyrical poetry, Gitanjali, was translated into English by himself. And in the same year, he was awarded Nobel Prize. Means, if in short pattern you come to know that Rabindranath Tagore has won he was awarded as a Nobel Prize. Means you can underline this, that Nobel Prize was given to Rabindranath Tagore for his literature purpose. Okay, he was then invited to all over the world for lectures. With his personality and accomplishment, he had great impression everywhere. He established Vishwabharati University at Shantiniketan, where he wanted to educate students according to ancient Indian tradition to create international understanding, creative unity, and purposeful activity. Tagore was a versatile genius. Like poetry, his paintings also won admiration. Means he was well known for his paintings and he had many name in his fame. He got name due to his admiration. Means he got familiar with the people. He was admired by the people, and he got his name and fame for his poetry and his painting. This is also main part. So while in the introduction, you will come to know that what Rabindranath Tagore, his from the birth part, when he was born, his religion, from which religion did he came, where did he did his education in England, and in England what did he do? He wrote poems, novels, means all of the part. For the exam part of you, whenever there is a question on Rabindranath Tagore, you have to know, give the first introduction part while writing your answers. Tagore was a versatile genius. Like poetry, his paintings and also won admiration. He also an accomplished musician. His poetry appeals to us on account of its musical grace. He died in 1941 at the age of 80, which was a great loss to India and the world. Means he was much familiar in India and it was a loss to the whole world. Can you see this? See this, that he was so much familiar due to his poetry. Means due to a small poetry part, he was famous due to the whole world. Okay. Now, to the individual and universe one, to the main point, we will see the civilization. What is it? Individual and universe. The civilization of ancient Greece was nucleated with city walls. In fact, all the modern civilizations have their cradles of bricks and mortar. These walls leave their marks deep in the minds of men. This set up a principle of divide and rule in our mental outlook, which begets in us a habit of securing all our conquest by fortifying them and separating them from one another. We divide nations and nations, knowledge and knowledge, man and nature. It breeds in us a strong suspicion on whatever is beyond the strong auspicious of whatever is beyond the barriers we have built, and everything has to fight hard for its entrance into our recognition. When the first Aryan invader appeared in India, it was a vast land of forest, and the newcomer rapidly took advantage of them. Means How was the ancient civilization in Greece? We have come to know up till now. Okay, next page. The description of the individuals. The forest afford them shelter. How was the situation in the ancient time? From the fierce heat of the sun and revenge of a tropical storm, pastures for cattle, fuel for sacrificial fire, and materials for building cottages, and the different Aryan clans with their patriarchal heads settle in the different forest tracts, which had come special advantage of natural protection and food and water in plenty. Thus, in India, it was in the forest that our civilization had its birth, and it took a distinct character from the from this origin and environment. Means how was the origin and how was the environment in Indian civilization after the birth they have described. It was surrounded by the vast life of nature, was fed and clothed by her, and had the closest and most constant intercourse with her varying aspects. Such a life, the lifestyle. How was the lifestyle in those days? It may be thought tend to have the effect of dueling the human intelligence and dropping the incentive to progress by lowering the standards of existence. But in ancient India, we find that the circumstances of the forest life did not overcome man's mind and did not enfeeble the current of his energy, but only gave to it a particular direction. Having been in constant contact within the living growth of nature, his mind was free from desire to extend his dominion by erecting boundary wall around his acquisitions. His aim was not to acquire but to realize, to enlarge his consciousness by growing with and growing into his surroundings. Means from these points from 5, we come to know how did man, human being, in those time, he spent his time in those days in the forest with his environment. Means he did not look for his newly acquired life, but he looked how he is going to grow in the nature with be with the nature. Okay, having been in constant contact with living growth of nature, his mind was free from the desire to extend his dominion by erecting boundaries all around his acquisitions. Now, accordingly, I have said his aim was not to acquire but to realize. Means he want to only realize what he is going to see, to enlarge his consciousness by growing into the surroundings. He felt that truth is all compressive, that there is no such thing as absolute insulation in existence, and only way of attaining truth in through the interpretation of our being into all objects. To realize this great harmony between man's spirit and the spirit of the world was endeavor of the forest dwelling sage of ancient India. In later days, means after some days further, he came a time when this preliminary forest gave way to cultivate fields and wealthy cities sprang upon all sides. Mighty kingdoms were established which had communications with all the powers of the world. But even in heyday of its material prosperity, the heart of India were looked back with adoration upon the early idea of strenuous self-realization and the dignity of simple life of the forest hermitage and drew its best inspiration from the wisdom stored there. Okay. Now you can check your things according to the given progress. Answer the following: how the questions are given according to the lesson. Where did the modern civilization develop? Means from part 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I have read. There, in how many one or two sentence you can describe it. We have come to know what I have been finishing up to 1.2. Okay. Now, according to that, number 2, 3, 4, 5, the questions are ready for you, and in such a way you can cover up your answers according to the questions. They are only in one or two sentences. Okay. Individuals and universe 1.32, part 7. The West seems, now they have given the directions. The West seems to take pride in thinking that it is subsiding nature, as if we are living in a hostile world where we have given a worst everything we want from an unliving and aligned arrangement of things. This sentiment is the product of the city wall, habit and training of mind. For in the city life, man naturally directs the concentrate light of his mental vision upon his own life and works, and he creates an artificial disassociation between himself and the universe nature within whose bosom he lies. Point 8. But in India, see the difference, individual and universe. How they have mentioned man and the universe. Individual means what? Up till now, we are finished the part 1. Means from the part 1, we can imagine that what we are going through the lesson is we have come to know how the man means the individual and the universe means the world, how he has come across, how both they came together and they have settled with the, how man has settled his life in his with the universe. Okay, it's a very interesting topic. We will really enjoy this Rabindranath Tagore's uh, part 1, that is individual and universe. Okay. Now, this sentiment is the product of the city, wall, habit, and training of mind. For in the city, life man naturally directs the concentrate light of all mental version upon his own life and works, and his creates an artificial dissociation between himself and the universal nature within whose bosom he lies. Means when Rabindranath Tagore, what he has said when he came in India and started looking, he had explained in his biography that this is the concept how man has uh, was with the universe, and the description in with the man and the universe he has pointed out. But in India, the point of view was different. See, when you see that he has noted some points, whenever you come across this word, but in India, the point of view was different. Means Rabindranath Tagore has mentioned typical words of for the Indian people, that, but in India, the point of view was different. It included the world with the man. See, you have come across the sentence what I am reading as one great truth. See, Indian put all here emphasize of the harmony and exist between the individual and the universal. She felt she could have no communication whatever with our surroundings, if they were absolutely foreign to us, man's complaint against nature is that he has to acquire most of his necessaries by his own efforts. Yes, means this is also a truth of man, that he should be always with the nature, whatever the things he is going to achieve, whatever knowledge he is going to get, the necessary things he is going to get from the nature, he has to work and do with his own efforts. Yes, but his efforts are not in vain. See, in vain means not, they are not destroyed, or they are not uh, in vain means worth. He is reaping success every day, and that shows where there is a rational connection between him and nature. For we never can make anything our own except that which is truly related to us. Now, in this part, we have come across how man has to go with his efforts with the nature. Okay, so they have given some points. We have to go through those accordingly, so that will be more easier to read it thoroughly, and you can make preparation and answer your questions, for cover your answers for your ready-made questions given behind the lessons. Okay, you should you can also turn your pages and look for the questions what you have reading through. Okay, point number 9. Now we can look upon a road from two different points of view. One regards as dividing us from the object of our journey over it as something attained by force in the face of obstruction. The other sees it as the road which leads us to our destination, and as such it is part of our goal. It is already the beginning of our attainment, and by journey over it we can only gain that which is in itself it offers to us. This last point of view is that the India with regards to nature. For here the great fact in that we are in harmony with nature, that man can think because his thoughts are in harmony with things, that he can use the forces of nature for which own purpose only because his power is in harmony with the power which is universal, and that in a long run his purpose never can knock against the purpose which works through nature. Okay, means, see, point number 9 we have finished. We are going to the point number 10. Again, Rabindranath Tagore is going to the west. He has described in the west the prevalent feeling in that nature, means we can see when he has took some particular part of India west, you see the west part is much he has noted about the nature and human things which he is being examined. In the West, the prevailing feelings in that nature belonging exclusively to inanimate things, and to this that there is a sudden unaccountable break where human nature begins. See, from the West, he says the human nature begins. According to it, everything that is low in the scale of beginning is merely nature, and whatever has the stamp of perfection on it, intellectual or moral, in human nature. It is like dividing the bud and the blossom, means it is into two separate categories and putting their grace to credit of two different and antithetical principles. But the Indian mind never has any hesitation in acknowledging its kinship with nature into unbroken relation with all. Point number 11. The fundamental unity of creation was not simply a philosophical speculation of India. It was her life object to realize his great harmony in feeling and in action. Within meditation and service, a regulation of her life. His cultivated her consciousness is such a way that everything had a spiritual meaning to her. The earth, water, and light, future, and flowers to her were not merely philosophical phenomena to be turned to use and then left aside. They were necessary to her in the attainment of her ideal of perfection, as a note in necessary to the completeness of the symphony. Indian intuitively left that essential fact of this world has a vital meaning for us. We have to be careful. We have to be fully alive to it and establish a conscious relation with it, not merely impelled by scientific curiosity or greed of material advantage, but realizing it in the spirit of sympathy with a large feeling of joy and peace. Check again. We are going to come and check and answer your question and cover it according to the lesson which we are going to, which we have end up till part 2. So here again we have come across the questions, one answer in 1 or 2 sentences. You can go through the questions. What does the West think of nature? See the question itself. When you go through it, when I'm reading, you can look for the question also. When we'll go, you can look and go through the questions, and when I'm giving the lecture, you can go through the lecture also. So that will be more helpful. Both of the things simultaneously will come, and you can also underline the answer while you are getting the question. Okay. 1.4 Individual and Universe, part 3. Point 12. The man of science. Now see, from the nature, the man has made his things, man has joined to the science. Okay, is one aspect that the world is not merely what it appears to be, our sense. Means, how did man come to know the science? He knows that earth and water are really the play of forces that manifest themselves to us as earth and water, how we can but partially apparent. Likewise, the man has his spiritual eyes open, known that the ultimate truth about earth and water. Means man found first the earth and then the water, which lies in our appearance of the eternal will, which work in time and takes shape in the force we realize under those accept. Means, as we are in Wagyu today also we are what we need, water and shelter. Okay, this is not mere knowledge of as science, but it is a precipitation of the soul by the soul. This does not lead up to power as knowledge does, but it gives us joy, which is the product of the onion of kindred things. The man whose acquaintance, the needs, acquaintance means the needs with the world does not lead him deeper than science. Science leads him with never understand what it is that the man with the spiritual vision finds in these natural phenomena. The water does not merely cleanses his limbs, but it purifies his heart, for it touches his soul. The earth does not merely hold his body, see, the but it gladness his mind, for its contact in more than a physical contact. It is in a living presence. When a man does not realize his kinship with the world, he lives in a prison. House whose walls are alien to him. When he meets the internal spirit in all objects, then he is ema- emancipated. For emancipated means appreciated. For the then he discovers the fullest significance of the world into which he is born. Means firstly he is appreciated, and and when he is born in this world, then he finds himself in perfect truth, that त्याच्यात खरेपणा आहे. He is a perfect truth. See how Rabindranath Tagore has made his description very significantly, and made the concepts very clear and very enthusiastic way, that how in India men are enjoyed to be fully awake to the fact around them, that they are in the closest relation to things around them, body and soul, and that they are to hailing the morning sun, the flowering, falling water, the fruitful earth as manifestation of the same living truth which holds them in its embrace. Thus, the text of our everyday meditation is the Gayatri, a verse which is considered to be a epitome of all the Vedas. By its help, we try to realize the essential unity of the world with the consciousness soul of man. We learn to perceive the unity held together by the one eternal spirit, whose power creates the earth, the sky, and the stars, and at the same time irradiates our minds with the light of a consciousness that moves and exists in unbroken continuity with the outer world. Okay, means see the significance of man, how Rabindranath Tagore has mentioned in his uh, prose, that individual and universe. So you can go through the questions behind, as I have said before earlier, so that you can go through some small answers, one and two line answers. You can find it them very easily. It is 1.4, point number 13. It is not true, means it is not true that India has tried to ignore difference of values in things. Means India has given values for the things, for she knows that would make life impossible. Means there is no ignorance. If you see, was there any ignorance? There was no ignorance. The sense of the superiority of man in the scale of creation has not been absent for her mind, but she has had her own idea as to that it which is superiority all consists. It is not in one power of possession, but in the power of union. Therefore, India choose her place of pilgrimage means again the old age. Pilgrim age means all again uh, they have gone to the old age style of the people. But this cannot go on forever. 15. Man must realize the wholeness of his existence, his place in the infinite. He must know that hard as he may strive, he can never create his honey within the shell of his hive. For the perennial supply of his life food is outside her walls. He must know that when man shuts himself out for the distilling and purifying touch of the infinite and fall back upon himself for his sustenance and his living, then he goads himself into madness, tears himself into shred and eats his own substance. Deprived of background of whole, the poverty loses its one great quality, which is simplicity, and becomes squaddle and shamefaced. His wealth is no longer magnanimous, it grows merely extravagant. His appetite does not minister to his life, keeping to the limits of their purpose, they become an end in themselves and set fire to his life and play the fiddle in the rule in the lurid light of the conflagration. Then it is that our self expression we start to startle and not to attract in art. We are strive for originality and lose sight of growth, which is old and yet ever new. In literature, we miss the complete view of man, which is simply and great yet great. Man appears instead of psychological problems or as embodiment of a passion that it instance because abnormal being exhibited in the glare of a fiercely amplified artificial light. When man's consciousness is restricted only to the immediate vicinity of his human self, the deeper roots of his nature do not find their permanent soil. His spirit is ever on the brink of starvation, and in the place of healthful strength, he substitutes round of stimulation. Then it is that man misses his inner perspective and measures his greatness by its bulk and not by its vital link with the infinite judges his activity by its movement and not by repose of perfection, the repose which is in the stay heavens, in the overflowing rhythmic dance of creation. Okay, so according to this, check your progress, how you have come to know according to the lesson.